and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. I am your host, Scott Daly, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and incredibly relaxed, vacation-minded buddy, Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
Oh, it's going well. I was just sitting on the beach drinking this pina colada with my microphone.
Yeah, I put the vacation in the title of this episode in quotation marks, and I hope everyone gets why. Because for some of us it was, and then for the others of us, it was not.
Yeah, that's accurate.
But we're back. We're back. It's been 3 weeks, actually. We haven't had an episode of this podcast for 3 weeks, which is crazy, actually.
Yeah, I know. And I've only done 3 podcasts in the last week, which is way below average.
But this week, we kind of want to slow roll it back into the process of doing podcasts every week, right? So we thought what we would do this week is just kind of talk about all the things we've been watching lately, very briefly. Just have like a potpourri episode. We do this every so often. I think actually, Matt, if someone happens to be randomly listening to this podcast, what happened was my wife and I had a baby, and I've been doing that for the last 3 weeks. And so I think the interesting thing about that, though, and people that don't have kids might not know this, is that the newborn phase of parenting is weird in that you can't do anything, but you also have nothing to do.
Right.
Basically because the baby wakes up like every 2 hours to eat and then sleeps. And that's pretty much it. But you can't leave the house and you need to help each other. So what happens is you end up like watching a lot of TV or watching a lot of movies or playing a lot of games or reading a lot of books. And so that's, Matt, what I did over the past 3 weeks is I just watched a whole bunch of stuff. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about all the stuff I watched. And you, with your copious amounts of free time, since you didn't have to do any podcasts, also watched a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, well, not only didn't have to do podcasts, but didn't have to like watch the things that we would then do the podcasts on. So yes, I caught up on a couple things that I've been putting off, and just here and there. I don't think I watched as much stuff as you, but I did find a few things to watch and talk about today.
Yeah. Well, and also you were sleeping a normal amount of sleep, whereas I was watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem at 4 a.m.
Correct.
So that's really going to be the episode. We're just going to talk about some of these things we've each seen, and some that we haven't. So we'll kind of gauge how long we want to spend on each one of them based on that fact. Do you want to kick us off, Matt? We can start with yours.
Sure.
I think yours will lead into one of mine as well. So I think that'll be perfect.
Yeah, well, I'll start off with probably the one I guess I want to talk most about, which is that I finally watched season 3 of The Boys. And yeah, we're not going to do spoilers, but the funny preface of this is that prior to starting on the season, I was totally just sure in my mind that season 3 of The Boys was going to be the final season. So my whole viewing experience of the season was oriented around like, we're building toward the final climax and it's all going to wrap up. That's not correct.
Nope.
So by the time I got to the end, I was like, they kind of just left us in a lurch on some of these plot threads. And then I realized it's because it wasn't the end. But, and I hate to start off with a complaint because overall, let me not start out with a complaint. I really enjoyed The Boys. I still enjoy The Boys. There's a lot of great acting, especially from Billy Butcher, Carl Urban.
Yeah.
Kind of everybody across the board is doing great, though. I thought Huey was becoming a caricature of himself a little bit. I've liked him in previous seasons, but I was kind of like I liked him a little less this time.
Sure.
And then the complaint, I guess, is just like season 3 kind of felt like a lot of these characters have arced out, and we're either retreading things that we are, essentially retreading character beats we already did, or kind of inventing something else for them to do, which didn't quite feel as compelling as the previous stuff. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess it's probably my least favorite of the 3 seasons, although I will definitely keep watching the show. That's my take on The Boys season 3.
Yeah, so it has been a while since I've seen this season of television. I think this season 3 came out last year, I believe.
I think so.
And I watched it as it was coming out. And I pretty much agree with you. I love the show. I really do. We did a whole episode on I think the first 2 seasons because we were enjoying it so much. It's irreverent, disgusting fun. I really enjoy it. And as you said, the performances are really great. I think Anthony Starr as Homelander continues to be like the star to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's just he you're so afraid of him, you're so scared, like you're so intimidated, and you're so captivated at the same time by everything he does. Yeah, I've always thought like the metaphor of the show was like very much on its sleeve. Like this is not a there's nothing subtle about the boys at all in what it's saying and what it's doing. But I've enjoyed it. But I agree with you. There is some stuff with some of the characters here in the third season when I'm like, you guys got to figure out what to do with these people because it doesn't feel like you're doing anything with some of them. And yeah, there's also like a subplot in this season about a few of the characters that previously haven't had powers find a drug that temporarily gives them powers. And I've just never been a fan of like the magic or super heat power or yada yada as drug addiction metaphor.
Uh-huh.
It's just never been my like favorite thing. Like Buffy did it in one of its seasons, and it wasn't my favorite thing in that season either. And so like that wasn't my favorite part of the season either, and I think that hurt my overall enjoyment of it.
Yeah, well, and I kind of agree at the narrative level that the fun thing about the boys was always that it was non superpowered people using cleverness and sort of brutality to try to figure out how to kill these nigh invincible people. Like
Hmm.
that's in my mind almost the premise. Like that's almost the sales pitch for the show. So
Yeah.
then the idea that they get powers is like, oh, okay. I, now it's just man punching man again, which is what I thought I was like escaping by watching this show.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I mean, this is like all based on a graphic novel, right? And
mhm.
neither of us have read it, but from what I understand, the group, the boys, the titular group, develop superpowers in the comic like pretty quickly. And actually think it's a testament to the strength of the show that they really held back from that for as long as they have.
Yeah,
I hope we kind of move away from that a little bit now. Like we've done that for this season. Let's do something else. But I
yeah,
don't know. I have no idea when the fourth season is coming out. I mean, I think the writer strike and actor strike and all that has affected all these things. So who knows when we're going to get to see the boys again.
yeah.
But yeah,
It's not.
I think we're in agreement on this one for sure.
Yeah, there's not an official date for season 4 yet. So,
Mhm.
all right,
There is
cool.
though, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. There is a spinoff of The Boys that just came out or just started coming out over the break. I think it's still playing. I think episode 5 came out today actually, which is called Gen V, and it is a boys spinoff that takes place at a college for superheroes. Um, and it's interesting, Matt. I like it, but I also like kind of wonder why it exists. God, this is so tough because like you would think perhaps in making a spinoff you would have like the opportunity to do something different in this world. Like maybe in tone or in like style or in like target demographic.
Right.
um but this is not that. This is just the boys, only instead of all our characters it's just teenagers, or young adults. Everything else is the same. The amount of violence, the amount of sex, the amount of sexual violence, like specifically penis violence. This is like one of the most penis violent shows that's ever existed. Like an episode goes by where someone's penis isn't horribly ravaged by something. And the same is true in Gen V, but which maps perfectly to the boys, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. It's interesting because you and I have been clamoring, just absolutely clamoring for more, nudity and sex in our media. But like, part of me wants to say like maybe not like this though. Like this isn't what I mean. I mean, it's not that I hate it, but it's not quite what I meant. Where it's just penises and then bad
It's
things happening to the penises, and that's kind of all there is. It's kind of the
yeah, it's just dicks. It's just a lot of dicks, and they're usually horribly mutilated at some point.
uh
That's totally true. And yeah, I think you know the thing is I enjoy the boys, and so of course I'm enjoying this. It's really interesting. They're doing a very specific thing in this show. Like the main character is a woman who has blood based powers. She discovers her powers during her first period, and then accidentally kills her parents. This is not a spoiler because it's literally the first 5 seconds of the show. Accidentally kills her parents with that power. And then we flash forward years later to her, getting into the school, and her whole thing, because blood is her power, she has to cut herself every time she uses her power. There's a girl who shrinks, and she shrinks by purging. And then
uh
she gets back to normal size by binging. So we're doing something there. There's one person who's there. This is interesting because it's supposed to be a trans metaphor, right? They are able to switch back and forth between male and female. The show has not like explained what their power is, like what in which form it is. They do they have different, like they have super strength and they're indestructible, which is like true for every boys superhero basically.
right.
But it hasn't really like demonstrated like, oh, they get a new set of powers in one gender versus the other. It just seems like every time they use their power, it either results in or is like a secondary effect is that they flop back and forth between a male and female representing form. But like you can see what metaphor we're building here, right? That like this is like a lot of the common mental health issues and struggles that young people are facing, and that's kind of what we're doing here with this whole thing.
Mhm.
um
That
it's
sounds cool.
Yeah, it's good. Like it is good. I've watched 4 episodes. Like I said, the fifth just came out today. So I don't know how many are in the season. I think maybe 8. So, but there's like this central mystery of something weird going on at the school, that we don't quite know about, called the Woods. It's like dropped in the first episode, and that part of the mystery is figuring out what's going on there. It's irreverent. It's ridiculous. The penises explode. So it's the boys. It's just the boys.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I kinda wanna check that out, although now the vacation's over, so I can't possibly watch any
Yeah, there's
television,
just
but
no time. There's no time.
I mean, it sounds cool. It's interesting. Like you said, it's interesting that they would do a spin-off and then not change it, but I guess if a
Yeah.
formula is working, what keep with it. Well, sure,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah. And one kind of side effect of this is I watched the show and then I listened to some podcasts about people talking about the show. And it did this really interesting thing for me, which is I realized that our friend Worm, the audio or the serialized novel that we read and did a podcast on, has no shot in the mainstream. It's just what it did for me, because I
Uh-huh.
listen to people talk about the ways in which these young people's trauma and the traumatic things they've gone through is being built as a metaphor around their powers, and how it was incredibly disturbing to these people watching the show. And I was like, oh, oh no. Okay. Um so don't read parahumans
Uh-huh.
basically. And I mean, this is something I always wondered about, right? We read that book, and it's a very dark book. There's a lot of terrible, awful things that happened, and there's people been clamoring for adaptations since they've read that, and it's like, could this thing ever be mainstream? And it's like, no, I don't think so.
S
But then again, I mean, Boys is popular. I think the
Yeah,
show is doing all right, so maybe
right.
not. I don't know.
I didn't see what you saw, and I haven't watched the show, so I'm not commenting so much as questioning, like, sometimes I think people are full of shit when they say stuff like that because basically
Hmm.
what like they're trying to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a mentally healthy normal person and you can believe me because I found it really disturbing when all those bad things happen in the TV show."
Yeah.
And in reality, I certainly never feel the need to do that because I think Clockwork Orange was really funny, etc.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I don't believe you. Or like, if you find it that disturbing, then stop watching it. But I just don't think you do. Invisible person who I don't even know, because like it's fiction, it's
Yeah.
it's made up. So I don't know. I think I think exactly this crowd of people might watch like a Parahumans adaptation and talk about how it's just too disturbing for them, and then continue to watch the entire thing. But
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's supposed to be disturbing, right? Like you're
Right.
supposed to feel like every time you see this woman get into a situation where she needs to use her power and she has to whip out her knife and open her palm and slice across her palm, it's like you're supposed to be made a little uncomfortable about that. Like
Yeah.
and you as she does it, you can see the scars on her palm from having to do it again and again and again and again. And it's like, yeah, you're supposed that's uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And that's like, and she's not dealing with that and dealing with that being the like the thing with her power.
Hmm.
Same way with the girl who is binging and purging to get bigger and smaller, like says, I don't have an eating disorder. I'm just this is how I shrink and get larger. And
Hmm.
it's like, obviously that's not true. So
Hmm.
it's really interesting the ways in which the show is using this thing that the parahumans does, using the power as a way of really diving into the issues that these people have.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's obviously it's ground that's been tread before. It's actually very popular ground to use. Like, I think Wild Bill really like predicted the wave of
Uh
a
huh.
lot of genre fiction in the last 10 years, because like using trauma as a metaphor in genre has become like the new hotness. Like everyone's doing it. Like there's horror stories that are talking about a metaphor for trauma, and there's superhero stories doing it. It's everyone's doing it. And of course the boys is no exception, and Gen V.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't really think of the boys as doing that, but I guess Gen it certainly sounds like Gen V is, and
Yeah, I
and
mean, this I'm trying to remember. Maybe the Starlight character a
well,
little bit, a little
yeah,
bit.
it all depends on, you know, you can even say Iron Man's quote unquote power is like, he wants to put a suit of armor around the world, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, but like is Captain America's power a trauma response? Like, no.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. It definitely this show though. And it
cool.
does surprise me, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, and we can move on. It does surprise me how much I like it, considering that it is just so much like the boys in a lot of ways. Like
Hmm.
even the main character with the blood power I was talking about, like her whole thing is she's kind of the optimistic, like is in it to be a hero type person, she's basically the starlight of the show, who gets into this world and then um eh, immediately finds out like the world is not everything she was told. It's corrupt and terrible, and all the things that the boys really discusses are here too. And part of her journey as a character is the realization of that stuff. So
Hmm.
that again is just the boys once again. So, but it's good. But it's good.
Yeah, cool. Sounds fun. I might check it out.
All right. I'm gonna do another TV show, and then we can jump to something you watched as well. Because
Okay.
I very briefly wanted to talk about a show called The Continental. Have you heard about this?
Is this the one that's John Wick related?
It is. It
Okay,
is.
that's like practically all I know about it. So hit me.
Yeah. So it is a 3 episode show on, I believe it was Peacock. That is a 1970s period piece. Um, origin story for the Continental Hotel that is featured in the John Wick series.
Hmm.
Basically, this is the story of how Winston, the character in John Wick, the first movie, that's the manager of the hotel, played by oh god, what's his name? Fuck.
I don't know.
Hold on. I mean, it's gonna really bother me if I don't say this person's name, because he's Ian McShane. There we go. Played by Ian McShane in John Wick. He's the manager of the hotel. It is basically the story of how a young Winston Scott takes control of the Continental and turns it into the Continental that we know in the John Wick series. Because at the beginning of this show, the Continental is run by Mr. Mel Gibson, who's in this as the bad guy. Um, it's not good. So it's it's 3 episodes, and each are like 90 minutes long. So it's basically like 3 movies. And here's the thing, Matt. I loved John Wick. I really liked the next 3 John Wicks as well. But the thing that I love most about John Wick, and still do, is how cool the world is, and just like the mystery of this world where like it seems like everyone's an assassin and there's all these weird rules and things that you have to do, and all of that stuff becomes like 1,000% less cool when
Uh-huh.
you start explaining it in detail and where it came from and all that crap. And like the coolest part about John Wick to me, one of my favorite parts about it is when, John has like gotten back into it basically, right? And he's at his house, and people are sent to kill him at his house. He kills them all, and then the doorbell rings, and it's a cop at the door. And you, the reader or the watcher, are like, "Shit, he's screwed." And the cop leans past John, sees the dead body on the floor, and says, "You working again, John?" And you, the viewer, are like, "The fucking cop knows who he is too." And like, it's just so cool. It's just such a cool introduction to this weird world where everyone seems to know this guy and know exactly what he does, and it doesn't matter. None of it matters because he's fucking John Wick, and stuff like this just makes it 1,000,000,000,000% less cool.
Uh-huh.
And I'm kind of sad I wasted literally 6 hours of my life watching this fucking thing because the action wasn't even that good. Like it just wasn't good. It just wasn't
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, this is the perennial human failure, thinking that we want to know more and that knowing more will make us happy and satisfied, but
Yeah.
it always makes it less interesting, especially when it comes to fiction.
Yep. So if you out there were thinking maybe I'll try out the Continental, don't waste your time. That would be my recommendation here.
All right, I wasn't gonna.
All right, what do you got?
Next on my list is The Wheel of Time season 2, which obviously I didn't watch the entirety of it while you were on vacation because it started
Mhm.
coming out in early September, but um, I finished it. I think the last
Oh, it
episode
is
came out
done. It is done.
last. Yeah, this season is done. Yeah, and I I liked it a lot actually. So the number one thing I can say about it, which will be most appealing, I think, to other Wheel of Time readers, is that it felt like Wheel of Time. Like the first season, I enjoyed it because it was trying. I don't think it was transcendent television. I didn't think it was bad either. I enjoyed that they were taking risks. The second season is just like actually good, and I don't have to put any weasel words and feel like I have to apologize for it. Um, it's like especially for book readers, it was good because they don't sort of shy away from going into all of the really complicated high context stuff where you've just got like tons of like cultures and ideas and powers and stuff being introduced like just constantly,
Mhm.
and not doing it in a way where they're like dragging you through the like monotony of it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, oh that, yeah, they're doing that, and it's just fun. The actors are doing, I think, uniformly a great job. And the finale kind of nails exactly what it's trying to do. There's a lot. So I know you read the first at least two or three books, and
Mhm.
I guess it doesn't really matter what you remember or don't remember. The point is like all of the kind of great moments in the second and third books, or yeah, second and yeah, mainly the second book is what we're covering with this one. So all the really great moments in that book are present in some form. So they may be altered, but they're not altered in a way that like changes the emotional core of what they're doing. And to me, that's a successful adaptation. Is it feels like the original
Mhm.
material. It hits the emotional important beats of the original material, and then it changes enough stuff to keep me wondering how, okay, I know where we're going, but how exactly are we going to get there? That to me is a great adaptation. So I'm really enjoying the second season quite a lot, actually.
That's great. You would think that with the ridiculous amount of time I had, I would have prioritized watching the show at all. And I didn't. This is not one I've gotten to yet, but that really encourages me. It makes me want to. Like I like the first season a lot. Obviously, I'm not a book reader. Like yeah, you are correct that I've read the first 4 novels of the series, and but I don't even call myself a book reader because it was so long ago that I just literally remember nothing of it at all. So, but I enjoyed the first season for what it was, and I mean there were definitely weaknesses with it that I think we talked about on that episode pretty extensively. But I'm curious, like it sounds like you liked it. I think our opinion on the first season ended up surprisingly to me being not the popular one. Do you know kind of what the opinion of the second season is amongst the general populace and maybe book readers more specifically?
Based on the places where I'm keeping my finger on the pulse, it seems to be much more positive.
Cool.
This could partially be that all the people who hated the show just left and didn't come back, which
Mhm.
good decision, great. Like that make everyone is happier this way, right?
Mhm.
And then the people who did hang around were more tolerant, but also I do think people just y- hanging around the subreddit, for example, you'll see a common take of like, oh, oh, this is better, so I think there's a lot of people who agree with me, in the sense of the second season is better than the first season, and many of whom think, oh, the first season was terrible, but the second season was actually good. So that's the broad take that I've seen. I think there's
Cool.
probably still people who don't like things, but I've seen um, a lot less just like broad. Oh, this is terrible. That they're ruining it. This is a disaster. How dare they? I haven't really seen that take on the second season.
That's
Um,
good. That's good.
I liked
Is
that. Go ahead.
I was just curious, have they greenlit it for more? I mean, I think the biggest fear with this thing is that, especially in the great shrinking that's happening right now, with like basically the amount of scripted television that we're going to have going into next year is probably going to be about half of what we have right now. And so there's a lot of worry that a lot of stuff's going to get canceled in that. Do you know if they've definitively said if there's going to be more of this or not?
I'm looking it up right now. I thought I saw that it had been, given some level of green light, but I'm unable to find that reference sitting here, so I don't actually know. Don't actually
It
know
does
one way or
say
the
so.
other.
The Wheel of it looks like they ordered season 2 and season 3 at the same time.
Okay,
So
okay,
Wheels of Time season 3 was ordered July 2022. So now that doesn't mean that they can't change their mind, and that's happened a bunch. Uh, Shows that were picked up for another season have subsequently the studios have gone, hey, just kidding, never mind. But it is. I mean, I think being on Amazon really helps it here because they don't care about money.
yeah,
They've got enough of it. Or rather we should say that they're fine with these things being like loss leaders.
uh-huh.
They don't care. Like same thing with the Lord of the Rings show. They like I doubt that's turning a profit on its own for them, but it doesn't matter, it seems.
Yeah, as long as that remains true, I think we might be safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I have no idea. I have no idea how they, as we've said before, no idea how they calculate how much money a show makes, or whatever, however they do that. But it's a good show though. I guess I mean, I mainly recommend it to book readers. I actually have no idea how it would play for people who haven't read the books, because there'll be just like whole sentences where people are talking to each other and speaking, borderline gibberish, just because of how many made up fantasy concepts are in the conversation.
And
Which
when you say that, are you speaking to this season specifically? Because I,
it, it
I didn't feel like I had trouble following stuff in the first season.
yeah, I mean, it's gotten worse over time, in the sense that like I don't know, like you remember they had like the dream world, and then there's like all these different words having to do with different aspects of the magic system, and so people will just be saying, you know, be careful, you won't be able to channel sight in Telar Unreod, and it's like if you're not really keeping up with the language, you're just going to be like, I don't whatever. You're gonna be lost. Maybe it's not as bad. Like that's the thing, is I can't calibrate, because to me I've known what those words meant my entire conscious
Sure.
existence. Um, but I don't know that really matters too, because the one thing I was thinking about, how the show really understands one element of the books, which makes the Wheel of Time unique, which is that the Wheel of Time is about mental suffering as like a
Hmm.
central theme. And it really adheres to that, where like over and over and over, like the magic system and the things that happen in the story are centered around like people being put in horrible, torturous situations where it's not physical torture, it's like mental torture or you have to do something that's impossibly hard, like for emotional reasons.
Mm,
And that's like the crux of the show too. That's like what they focus on. Like so like that's and each episode is structured really well too, which makes it good television because there's that's like the sign of good TV is if they understand like an episode has to be an episode.
yeah,
You can't
yeah.
and so they do a good job at that kind of stuff.
Cool, cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, I want to check it out eventually. If only just to be that one of the few people that is interested in putting in the work to do that. That you can reference to see if this works for non book readers at all.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to hear your response to it, just to sort of. I don't think anything you could say would make me like it less, but it would be nice to know whether I'm just operating purely on nostalgia or not.
Mhm. Cool.
Yep.
All right. I had a couple movies I wanted to run through with you really quick here that I saw as well because I didn't just watch TV. The first that I'm bringing up to you specifically because of what you just mentioned, and that we're always kind of looking for raunchy R-rated comedies
Hmm.
that seem to not exist anymore. Well, I watched a film called Joyride. This is a movie directed and written by a woman named Adele Lim, who she also wrote Raya and the Last Dragon for Disney, and she wrote Crazy Rich Asians, or one of the writers on Crazy Rich Asians. This is a story about like a quartet of Asian women, Asian American women traveling to China to search for one of their birth mothers, and it is raunchy as hell. It is funny. It is everything I think you would want in this kind of comedy. Like I don't I think we talked about this on the show, but we watched the No Hard or I watched the No Hard Feelings, the Jennifer Lawrence rated R comedy that we were really excited about earlier in the summer because we were like, "Oh my god, a rated R studio raunchy comedy. Yes, yes, yes."
Uh-huh.
And that movie really disappointed me. It just wasn't that funny actually,
Okay.
unfortunately. But Joyride kind of had everything I wanted in that kind of thing. It was just so funny. It has the actress from Stephanie Sue who played. Uh, she was in God, why can't I think of it? Everything Ever All at Once. She played the daughter character in that movie, and I
Okay.
really loved her in that movie. And she's in this, and she's great in this movie as well. It's a fun 90-minute raunchy, extremely rated R comedy about four women that are friends, kind of trying to discover, themselves, and it's just great. It's just really great. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Great. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That is on my list immediately, just based on your pitch there.
Yeah, so that's called Joyride. I believe that is on. Most of these are things like that. I was just going through like the streaming services we have and be like, oh wow, that's on the X for free or whatever. I think this one was on uh, Prime. I think,
Cool.
but yeah, good movie. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
The other ones I want to talk. So I watched some of the Disney movies that came out this summer. Did you ever see The Little Mermaid, the live action
No, I
one?
didn't. No.
Okay, we'll be really quick here. It's not good. It's bad. um, like, and I want to say this coming from me, the guy who I think has been pretty staunchly defending the live action remake things because I genuinely like them. Like I like the Beauty and the Beast one. I really like the Aladdin one actually. Did not like the Lion King one at all, and
Uh-huh.
did not like this. I will say that Halle Bailey, who played Ariel, is phenomenal. She's very good in this movie, but just about everything else about it is bad. Very bad. The underwater special effects look terrible. There's just like even like the choreography of like the numbers and everything. Like they did Under the Sea, but they do it with all like photorealistic looking animals that aren't playing instruments.
Mhm.
And like the song is about animals playing instruments, and
Mhm.
it's just not good. Like there's no energy to it. It's just bad. It's unfortunately a very bad movie.
Yeah, just who at Disney is the one who is just insisting with all these remakes that they're like, all these animals, all these movies we have where the animals are alive and they do anthropomorphic things. We're not going to do any of that ever again. They're all going to be dirty looking, realistic animals.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's bizarre. It's like I mean I haven't watched the movie, but you see Sebastian, and he's this gross crab,
Yeah,
and it's
he's just
like
a crab.
yeah, it's like that's not like you're misunderstanding how movies work.
Yeah, and flounder just looks like an actual fish.
Uh huh.
And here's the thing about fish: they're ugly,
Uh huh.
and they're not warm and comforting and friendly. Like
Uh huh.
just an ugly
Right.
looking fish.
Yeah, right. I mean, Sebastian in particular, they give him like eyes and lips and a nose, and it's like, yeah, a crab has like beady little eyes and mandibles. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
terrifying. It's a monster. Yeah,
Yeah. So disappointing. Not too surprised though. I also think it's like almost unfair to live in a world with Avatar where you have made an underwater movie, because it's never gonna be as good as that.
uh,
Uh, but it's still really bad.
yeah,
And they added songs to it, Matt. They always throw like extra songs in these movies, and they're always bad. Like
yeah,
they're just the like, and it's so almost jarring when you cut from one of like the most well-known wonderful songs, like Kiss the Girl, Poor Unfortunate Souls, Under the Sea, Part of Your World, like these great songs, to What's the Scuttlebutt, and you're just like, which is when the stupid seagull named Scuttle is asking what's going on, and he's singing what's the it's the dumbest, it's awful. It's
uh-huh.
awful.
Yeah. I can't even remember the melody of any of the new songs at all. Zero. So
Well, what's the scuttlebutt, Matt?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, Scott.
So the other movie I wanted to talk about is one that I know you've seen, so we could actually have a conversation about this movie,
Okay.
which is Pixar's Elemental. I know you kind of talked to me briefly about this when you had seen it, but I hadn't gotten to see it at that point. I finally did get to see it, and I loved this movie. I was really surprised. Like, I haven't really loved a Pixar movie in a bit, and I really enjoyed this movie. But I think one of the things you said at the time was, how are children gonna get into this movie at all?
Uh-huh.
And it's a movie about being the child of an immigrant moving to a new place and learning to find her identity, and the identity of being the her that grew up in this new place, but also the her that is attached to this old place. The fire people, I think, pretty Asian coded, right?
Yeah.
Like written by an Asian woman, I think. Um, or an Asian man. I'm not sure. No, Peter San. That was
Yeah.
who
Well,
directed it. Yeah.
actually,
Um,
well, I mean, you're not wrong, but what I like about it is it feels broad enough to
yeah.
be
Oh yeah.
applicable to any immigrant. But
A
yeah,
hundred percent. A hundred
yeah,
percent. But like, I don't know. So this thing's been happening in my life where my son has like just finally hit the age where he wants to watch, or he can watch movies and stuff. And so we've been watching Finding Nemo on on repeat, basically. We also had him watch Toy Story and Toy Story 2 as well, and he really likes those movies. And it's like, I watched these movies and I was thinking about them in comparison to Elemental, and like those movies are about pretty complex themes too. Like Toy Story is about dealing with jealousy and, worrying about what your future is going to be. Finding Nemo is about like this father who has suffered this terrible loss, like learning to trust and to live again. Like these are really complicated themes, but they also have little funny animals that kids really love to see.
yeah,
And it's not like this doesn't have little funny guys, because there's all these little funny elementals running around, but it just seems so far removed from a thing that a little kid would really get a kick out of, to me.
yeah. And I sort of reductively call it a romantic comedy, which I mean
Yeah, yeah,
that's in there too. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm reacting to what you just said though, because it's like, Finding Nemo is about a father's grief and all this complicated stuff, but also at the level of even like a 3-year-old, they're like, boy is lost, little
yeah.
boy is lost, daddy's
Hmm.
trying to get little boy. They can get that much,
Yep, yep.
you know and also all these movies, they sort of give you something to care about in the moment, where it's like, is this character going to solve the problem in this specific scene? And
Yeah.
like really little kids, they're actually not processing the movie as a unit. They're just watching this moment of movie.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, and it's funny because I said all that stuff, but like I took my kids to see Elemental, and they all said they loved it, and it was me being like scratching my head like an idiot, being like, but like why? because like
Yeah, maybe I'm just
because I
wrong
liked it
about this.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, and I liked it too. I'm not even complaining. It's like I don't even know what my point is. I'm just like, yeah. It turns out I liked it. My kids liked it. I guess I'm just surprised that they tried to make a movie like this in the first place, because it is, like you said, it's very like cerebral in a sense, and
Yeah.
again, it's like, can little kids really get invested in will they won't they drama? Is that something they
Yeah.
even like notice? Um,
Right. And I think you raise a good point that like even Toy Story is like Buzz, Woody got to get home,
mhm,
right? Like
mhm, yeah,
that's you filter down the plot. It's just that. And I don't think this movie has that. It's the plot is always, you know, we've got to juggle these six different things, and my dad is disappointed in me, and then I'm also at the same time falling in love with this guy who my father hates, and like it's lots of complicated stuff. And look, this is where I'm kind of confused, or not confused, but I'm conflicted rather, because like I don't want to tell Pixar and these filmmakers to like don't do stuff like this
mhm,
because it's good. I liked it, but it's like I look at we talked about this movie when it came out. It was the lowest opening weekend for a Pixar movie ever, and it ended up doing okay. Like it had legs. I think it helped that there just wasn't a lot of uh animated films for children out this summer, so people like ended up taking their kids to see it and ended up making over $100 million, which is great, wonderful. I want Pixar to make more money because I want them to have freedom to do things. But yeah, it's like when I it, walking out of this movie, I guess my thing was this was a really good movie, and I'm not surprised at all it didn't make a ton of money.
mhm.
And
Yeah, I like our lens we just invented, because I'm going through the different movies and I'm like, Luca, it's like it's about all this complicated stuff, but you can boil it down to like they want to win the bicycle race,
yeah,
you know,
boy win race. Yeah.
boy win race, and I don't know how to boil down. I don't know how to boil down Elemental, and it kind of, I'm agreeing with you where it's like, well, I don't want to tell them like make it dumber,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just yeah, it's just interesting. I guess, I mean, I think it's cool. Like my kids put it on the other day, like last week actually, randomly, and I like was sort of like gravitated, and I like sat down and I just watched the movie, and
Mhm.
which usually doesn't happen. Usually I'm too busy to be sucked into a movie. But yeah, no, it's a good movie. I like it.
It is, and from an animation perspective, I mean, just like holy shit, like talk about giving themselves. Like I feel like Pixar always like selects hard mode whenever
Yeah,
they are sitting down to make a movie because it's like, all right, we're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna have to do fluid animation and fire animation and air animation. We're gonna do all these in the same shot, and every shot is gonna have both of these things in them at all times, and you're going to have to light it, and actually having the water next to the fire is going to make it more complicated because you're going to have to do the lighting of the fire. Like it's just holy shit, man, and it
yeah,
looks fantastic. It really does.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. They really go for it too, because there's whole sequences where it's almost like the point of this sequence is to just look amazing.
Yep. Yeah.
And it sure does.
So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I think we're at a really interesting place with Pixar. I don't know, like the last two films, the Buzz Lightyear film and this, have not been successes. I think this ended up doing okay, which is good. But I don't know what Pixar is going to look like going forward. I think the next film, I think they've got an original coming out next year, and then also a sequel to which one is this a sequel to? Sequel to one of my favorite of theirs, Inside Out. Is the sequel
Oh yeah,
is coming
yeah,
out next year. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I hope they're successful. Like it used to be, a Pixar movie released in the summer and it would basically be a shoe in for $1 billion movie.
right.
And that just hasn't been the case for a while now.
Yeah, but maybe movies are back now, and people really
Movies are
love
so back.
Inside Out. So
Yeah, I mean, Inside Out, I think still probably my favorite of their films. I don't know. I keep going back and forth, but I really loved Inside Out at the time.
Yeah, it's really hard to rank.
How does
Like
that
you
one fall into our thing though? Like, is that that's interesting because there's a lot of complicated shit going on in that movie.
Yeah, but I think I can still track, like, the kid cares about, like, Joy made a bad mistake that she's trying to fix, and then in parallel, like, the little girl is running away from home because she's really sad, and the reason she's really sad is because of Joy's mistake,
Hmm.
and it's like, okay, at what age of kid can understand that? I think, like, a 5-year-old can understand all that stuff I just said, at least.
Hmm.
Probably not
Sure.
younger. Um,
Yeah. No, that's fair.
so
All right. Well, yeah, we'll find out next year. The I was correct as you were talking. I was looking it up, and Inside Out 2 is supposed to come out next year, and their original film is called Elio.
okay,
Elio struggles to fit in until he is transported by aliens and becomes chosen to be one of Earth's galactic ambassadors.
sounds fun.
Sure.
Yeah, love it.
America Ferrera's in it. Yeah. All right. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I'm
It's going
there.
to look gorgeous, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I saw the trailer for this. Yeah, it looks fun.
Oh, there's a trailer?
Yeah, yeah,
Shit.
yeah.
Okay. I got to look this up. Okay. All right, Matt, that's a few movies I saw. Why don't you take it away?
I'll just very briefly. So, like, we did Children of Time, the book. We did Children of Ruin, the book on book club,
Mhm.
and because I didn't want to wait, because I'm impatient, I read Children of Memory, and I liked it a lot. I think I actually liked it more than Children of Ruin.
Interesting.
Maybe not as much as Children of Time, and I like both of those books. So it's like, yes, it's a good solid book. It's got some really strong stuff, some really strong character stuff, and also just kind of the kind of sci-fi I like. It kind of explores and plays with the ideas that I get excited to think about, and so it's always sort of gratifying when it's like, you feel like the book's written for you because it's grappling with the ideas that you yourself are grappling about. Um,
Sure.
and it also proved to me that I'm living in a simulation. Um,
Uh, okay.
well, I can't explain that without spoiling the story, but the universe did tell me that I am living in a simulation.
Okay. Okay,
So
gotcha. Is this the end of this series? Is the last one definitively?
sure felt like it.
Okay.
I would be pretty surprised based on the denouement that this book gets. It like the Children of Ruin had a little bit of a buttoning up at the end, if you'll recall,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't. It left it feeling like it was opening the door to a universe, whereas this one left it feeling like, and that's what I have to say about all of that. So I mean, you can always add a new book into your universe, but it felt like a very solid trilogy that he was kind of closing the cover on,
Cool.
in a satisfying way.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to check that out. I really enjoyed the first two books as well. So it's only a matter of time. I guess we can't do it as a book club book anymore because you had to just run out and read
We
it.
we can.
But the whole point is that we're discovering new books that neither of us have read.
Is that the whole point?
No, that's not the whole point.
I don't think we even followed that rule, but
We have
anyway.
not. I
Yeah.
think the majority of the books that we've covered are things that both you and
Oh,
I
yes.
haven't
The
read before,
majority
right?
for sure. It's just
Yeah.
it's not a rule.
No.
But yeah, that's a recommend from me, especially if you
Cool.
like the kind of sci-fi that I like.
Awesome. All right. So I wanted to briefly, I think right before we took our break, I had told you that the Star Wars show Ahsoka on Disney Plus was good
Uh-huh.
and worth watching. Remember when I told you that? Remember
I
those weeks ago?
That was a long time ago, but yeah, I did.
Yeah. I'm just here to update you on that show.
Uh-huh.
I was just kidding and you fell for it. Haha, you loser. I was totally kidding. I
Oh,
can't believe you
wow.
believed me. Oh
I
my
feel so
god.
dumb.
No, the show finished last week, and I don't like it. It had me in the middle there, and then it just completely lost me by the end. I actually think the final episode is just bad. And like to the point where I'm just like having to kind of throw my hands up and be like, okay, this Filoni Star Wars stuff is just not for me.
Uh-huh.
It's just not. I don't even know if I say not like what I want out of Star Wars, because I look like this a very positively received show. People really seem to enjoy this. Like on people's short lists of good Star Wars stuff, it's like this and Andor are appearing on those lists together. And like people are like, say what you will about Ahsoka, but it is Star Wars. And I'm just like, oh, is it?
Oh,
Okay.
oh, oh,
Well, I guess I don't like Star Wars
yeah.
anymore then.
Is that
Um,
yeah, damning
like
with faint praise, yeah.
I think ultimately, like, I just feel like this stuff rarely has stakes in the way that I find it interesting. Like, I feel like it's just events happening to characters, and it doesn't feel like any of it actually ends up mattering. Like one of the big things, and I'm gonna slightly spoil the middle of Ahsoka, people, if you're really concerned about that. But the thing that I told you about that made me so excited about the show when I spoke to you last, I didn't go into details about it then, but I'm going to do it now. Is, they're looking for there's a bad guy. Thrawn is his name. I can't keep these
Thrawn,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
Jesus,
a big
Scott.
he's a big bad guy. The show just kind of assumes he's a big bad guy, and that him coming back would be very very bad. It doesn't do a lot of effort to point out exactly why that would be, but just trust me, it's bad. And so the bad guys are trying to find this star map to where he is in some other galaxy, to go get him and bring him back. And so the early parts of the show is our heroes trying to stop them from doing that. And there's this really decisive moment where one of our good guys has the star map in her hand, and she could easily destroy it and prevent the bad guy from ever coming back. But there's a twist, because her best friend and basically family member, who's a character that I've never met, because again, this is basically just a sequel to something else. He might be out there where the bad guy is as well. And so if we destroy the star map, we will prevent the bad guy from coming back, but also our friend who could be out there might be lost forever as well. And so she makes the bad choice. She chooses to not destroy the star map, and in fact hand it over to the bad guys, and then go with them to the new galaxy to get the bad guy to come back.
Uh-huh.
And of course she does. She finds he is there, his friends there, and like this was a really cool moment to me though, because I was like, oh, you allowed your character to make like the bad choice, the wrong choice, the choice that's going to probably bring great evil back to the galaxy. And like that's going to be this hinge on which the rest of the character stuff for the rest of the season is going to turn, because she's going to have to now confront her master with the truth of this. And what happens when he finds out what she did in order to go get it? Like he's going to feel guilt about this. And like, was this worth it? Like, but none of this stuff plays out dramatically. None of it. It just doesn't matter. I think there's like a conversation in the last episode where the master character Ahsoka is like, "Yeah, I had to make a lot of hard decisions too, and no one believed me." They basically tell her at the end of the day that she was right to make that decision. That good, you actually did, except for the bad guy's coming back now, Matt. He's back, and
Uh-huh.
it's bad. It's just, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
it's
It
it's just
sounds
not
like
for me. It's just not for me. It
yeah.
really isn't.
Well, it sounds like um I don't know. I'm calibrating how pejorative to be here, but and I've kind of been reading about this in the background, so I'm a little biased. But like, it sounds like children's cartoon sort of like plot stuff where it's like that's okay.
Yeah.
The important thing is you learn from your mistake.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I like my mind like cross cuts with like Andor shooting someone in cold blood, and it's like it's like that's yeah. I'm just not interested in that kind of storytelling anymore. Like
Yeah.
unless it's done really well and like
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
like I'm actually watching a Pixar movie, for example, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you know. But even a Pixar movie, I don't think would have sort of like this like undermining of its own stakes, which is what you just described, where it's like
Yeah.
we're setting up a really serious confrontation and a really serious antagonist and a high stakes situation, and then the bad thing happens, and then you're like, it doesn't matter. Actually, it's fine. Um,
Yeah.
it's like okay. All right, I guess I don't care then.
The other
Just
super frustrating thing is they had this character named Balin, who is a former Jedi. He doesn't really call himself a Sith, but he definitely doesn't isn't a Jedi either.
mhm,
And he was really cool and interesting, and like he's kind of tagging along with our main antagonists, but like just like as a means to an end, that
mhm.
like something else, he wanted to get out to this galaxy because something out there is calling to him, and there's this mystery around what's going on with him. Unfortunately, he's played by an actor named Ray Stevenson, who after the filming of this series passed away. Um, and this is all left basically open at the end of the season.
Mhm.
So like nothing there is resolved. Like he's standing in front of some giant statue, which I saw online is like hugely significant for some reason that you have to read or watch other things to know. Like I was just like, oh, it looked like a Lord of the Rings statue that he's standing behind. It means nothing to me. I guess sure, shrug. But I don't know what they're going to do with his character. I guess because I guess they wanted this to continue, but are they just going to recast it? I don't know how they're going to handle any of that. But it's like disappointing that they just can't resolve any of the stuff in one season of television anymore. So yeah,
Yeah.
not a good show, man. Not just not a good show,
All
in my
right.
opinion.
Um,
And I don't
yeah.
understand why they just didn't make it an animated show. Like I really don't get it. Like the shows that it's a sequel to were animated. Just do an animated show, and then you don't have to do this weird thing where like they were trying to be true to the eyes of all the animated characters, so they like gave them these really fucking weird looking eyes that probably would look totally normal in cartoons, but just look uncomfortable and weird. And I just don't want to. I don't understand why they did that.
I mean, I think the close to the actual answers that they're making this for the crowd that watched the animated shows, but now those people have grown up, and so they're appealing to them by making something that feels tonally like the Clone Wars cartoons. Like, I mean, that's basically like the total fragmentation of Star Wars at this point is just a step back from us for a minute. Like it's kind of funny that I was like this 7-year-old jumping around on his play structure with one of those sticks that goes yeah, yeah, and pretending it was my lightsaber. Um, and here I am, approximately 30 years later, being like, you know, lightsabers are for stupid babies. I just want a Star Wars show about a man who garrotes people and leaves their dead bodies for their families to find. And it's like, Matt, you're being ridiculous actually. Like Star the point is though, like Star Wars is different things to different people. And I think I've just accepted that because I'm not even going to try to watch Ahsoka because like everything I've seen is like, oh, this is just not the thing that I'm going to enjoy. But this
Yeah.
isn't like a judgment. This isn't like a um they should stop making stuff like this. I'm just like, oh, okay, not my thing, not for me at this point.
Yeah, I mean that's where I am at too. Like I just see that there's a lot of positivity around this thing, and I don't want to take away from anyone that enjoyed it. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's my thing. I just feel like they've made lightsabers boring to me. They
Uh
really
huh.
have, and it's not like I don't. It's not like I stopped thinking lightsabers are cool. I think lightsabers are really cool. It's a it's a sword, but it's made out of laser. That's
Uh
really
huh.
fucking cool, and it makes cool noises when you hit them together. That's really great. But they just like it's so overdone, and frankly in the season finale of this episode especially, like the choreography with these fights with the swords are like it's so lame. It just
Yeah.
isn't good like filmmaking.
Hmm.
Um and that doesn't help. Doesn't
Yeah.
help.
Just to underscore, I guess what I was saying a second ago. Thrawn was first published in 1991.
Yeah, so that's one of the few things they've taken from the expanded universe stuff and brought it back into the fold, right?
Yeah, I just think it's funny because 1991, that was 14 years after 1977.
Mhm.
So and then 1991 was 32 years ago. So Thrawn has existed for much longer than the duration of time between A New Hope coming out and Thrawn being invented. So like not only are we is Thrawn's invention closer to the beginning of Star Wars than we are to Thrawn, but it's like not even close. So it's just like this is the this is the world we're actually living in. We're living in a world where even the fan fiction of Star Wars has been around for so long that it's grown like deep gnarled roots into the cultural consciousness. Um, it's just
Yeah,
very strange. It's a very strange place to be in, and time is going to keep passing, and someday like people are going to think of, I don't know, Andor or Ahsoka in the same way they think of uh, Luke Skywalker, right? It's just
sure.
it's fascinating, this new mythology that we're watching kind of like grow in real time
Yeah, no, no,
over the
you're
decades.
right. You're totally right, man. Still don't understand why Thrawn. I mean, I know why he's the bad guy. Like that's very clear, but I just don't understand how him being back means everything's gonna be bad immediately. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can explain it in one sentence. Like the cool thing about Thrawn is he's this tactical and strategic super genius where he's always thinking 12 steps ahead. And it's the kind of story, like the Thrawn stories are the fun kind of story where like the fun is like, oh, he's just so smart. Like it's
Mhm.
fun to have a really smart villain, right?
I do think that's one thing that if that's the case, then was carried over very well to this show.
Hmm.
Because like especially in the finale, there's like a whole bunch of moments where like other people are like, well, surely the
Do do
Jedi is
do
dead
do do
now.
do
And he's like,
doof.
prepare for a ground assault. He's just like he just like seems to be reading the script and knowing
Uh-huh.
that like no, this the people you think you've killed with your brilliant action are definitely still alive and still coming. Um,
Yeah.
there is like a line though that I think I saw a tweet. This isn't my original idea, but I loved it so much. It's so perfect, and I can't remember who said it. But like, there's a line at the very end of the thing when Thrawn is talking to Ahsoka over like they're in different ships and talking over the radio and being like, Ahsoka Tano, like you were a worthy adversary, and it's a shame we never met in person and perhaps never will. And I'm like, there's the problem in your show right there. That your protagonist and your antagonist were never in a room together and never spoke during the entire of the whole season. That's your problem. There it
Uh-huh.
is, right there.
That's funny. That's good. I like that.
So I spoiled more of that show than I intended to. Sorry, but yeah, it's just it's. Is it also weird that like in this show about space wizards, I just think adding like witches and zombies is just like a little too silly.
Hmm.
Is that like I feel like that's one of those things where I'm just like, this is a me thing and not I can't dig the show for this because Star Wars is silly already. But I'm just like when I'm watching like stormtrooper zombies walk around, I'm just like, this is just silly now. Like this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess for me, I would probably say it would depend on the execution, and it sounds
Yeah,
like their
fair.
execution didn't earn
Hmm.
the right to have zombie stormtroopers.
Sure, sure. All right, Matt, what do you got?
I'm sorry, Scott. I
What are you gonna do to
apologize.
me?
I'm uh Me and my kids have been watching a television program called
Uh-huh.
One Punch Man.
Now,
Um
is
uh-huh.
that one of them animes?
It is anime, I think it is. Um and look, I'm not going to like tell you should watch it, but I do think it is like we've identified sort of the subtype of anime that you enjoy, and that to put it to put the point on it, that we enjoy, actually,
Hmm.
which is like it has a point and it's kind of clever in how it's approaching the point, and then all of the fictional aspects of it are in service to that thing that it's doing thematically and so forth. And that is definitely true for this show, and it's like basically it's basically just a comedy where like the joke is always, it's almost like a Mr. Bean level joke on the protagonist, where the protagonist is Saitama and he's One Punch Man, and the gimmick is that he can always defeat any enemy with one punch. Um,
Hence the name.
Hence the name. But like it what it actually is it's a delightful satire about um, bureaucracies and like finding identity in your job or versus not finding it in your job, and your attitude towards your work, and all of these things that I find very relatable as a grown up. I'm just, constantly charmed and delighted by the like how each episode will be, progressing along, and it's about like bur- burrowing um um like subterranean mole creatures or something, and
Hmm.
then like but it's actually about like how do you feel about your role at work, you know and so it's basically it's it's fun for me because it's actually a satire, and then it's fun for the kids because it's silly, which it is, it's silly.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
that's basically it.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott. Scott's giving me some notes in the
No,
script.
I'm adding it to the list. I'm telling you, it's added to the list, Matt.
Okay,
It,
he's
I here's
I
my
see.
list. I added
Yep,
it to it.
Scott has added it to his list of things to watch
Uh huh.
after. Let me check what he wrote here. Literally everything else in the world. Um, so so
No, I'm
that
sure it's great. I just there's too much stuff
no
for me to
no
watch that I
no
just don't see myself ever getting to that.
no. This is more of a PSA for like there are animes that people have insisted that I watch, and I try to watch them, and I just bounce off
Hmm.
like incredibly hard. And this is not one of them. This is one where I was charmed and delighted and found it quite fun and funny. So
Cool. Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just giving it a hard time. I'm sure
yes.
it's very good. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about Wes Anderson. Did you know, Matt, that right now there are 4 Wes Anderson short films on Netflix?
I think I knew this because you told me, but let's pretend that no, Scott, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
they're they're just on there. They were added like last week, and they just put them out there.
Uh-huh.
And so this is it's called the Wonderful World of Henry Sugar, I believe, is the full title. And this is Wes Anderson's like all of these are adaptations of Roald Dahl. Um, and the weird thing about it is they're all short films. I think Henry Sugar is 45 minutes and the rest are around 15 minutes long. But Netflix doesn't like package them together as like a series of like the Wes Anderson Roald Dahl collection. They're just 4 short films out there, and so like they don't really like it doesn't say like Wes Anderson in big letters on it. It's just The Rat Catcher recently added, or The Swan recently added, or Poison recently added. It's just really weird to me because like the reason I knew about this is because I was following this for a while because I love Wes Anderson and was very, very curious about these things. And it's just so weird to me that they just kind of unceremoniously dropped these. And not only unceremoniously dropped them, but dropped them to be like, if you happen to look and see, like right now, I booted up Netflix while I was talking, and The Rat Catcher is on like my home screen, and I like if you were to just see this and go, oh, Wes Anderson has a new short film, like you wouldn't necessarily know that there are also 3 other ones out there that you could watch.
Uh-huh.
It's just so strange to me. It's so strange, and I think maybe part of this is because if they package them together in like a series, it would maybe become TV, and then some of these short films would not be eligible for an Oscar. Maybe like that's the cynic in me saying why they did this way. But the overall point, Matt, is that there are 4 Wes Anderson short films on Netflix right now that anyone can just go watch, and they're really freaking good. Um, this is Wes Anderson at his most Wes Anderson-y. Um, they are basically these Roald Dahl short stories, and the way it is constructed is the there is a narrator reading the narration of the short story to you, the viewer, and talking to you, and so like it's all kind of set up to be almost like it's a stage production, in that like you're watching the as the scenes change, you watch the backgrounds, like you have prop people like pull backgrounds out and put like it's very it's made to be very like you are aware this is a performance being put on, and it's just like Wes Anderson kind of leaning into his aesthetic, into his shtick like never before. And the stories are very good. They're really interesting. I don't think he shies away from some of, Roald Dahl is a very very well known writer who also had some not great things that he said and believed. And I think this kind of leans into some of them. Like there's one called Poison that I think is really really fascinating, kind of just about racism, um, as it turns out. And I'm trying to think of what to say without spoiling what these are about. But like, if you like Wes Anderson, I think you are going to love this. And the thing I love about it is that it just seems like, people. I think Anderson has been critiqued for really like getting insane with his style lately, and like his response to that critique seems to be doubling down in like between this and I know you haven't seen it, but Asteroid City, the film, like the feature length film that came out earlier this year, it really feels like he's like saying, fuck you.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna do what I want. And it's all delightful. I think like in these short films, he must have like had a direction to all his actors. Like, I need you to talk really, 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 really fast because they're all like talking so fast. It's like so many words being thrown at you. But it's all like it's propulsive. It's really, 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 really good. I really liked these a whole bunch.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize they were all Roald Dahl stories, actually, so
Yep.
that's cool.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I think everybody loves Roald Dahl,
Yeah.
my kids have read a lot of his stories. I read a lot of his stories when I was young. In fact, I remember, um, The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar specifically as being,
Mhm.
like, impactful on me in some way, so, yeah, I'll definitely
Yeah.
watch these.
Really really good. And I really love the ways in which he's exploring like the line between the art that he's creating and the viewer, like because again the actors are looking at you and talking to you, and again he's not shying away from the fact that this is a performance. Like, he's having stage hands walk on the screen and hand a prop to an actor when the actor says, I reached into my drawer and pulled out a knife, and then and then a guy walks on stage and like hands him a knife,
Uh-huh.
and now he's holding the knife. And like he's just fully leaning into the um the the artifice of it in I think really interesting ways. The other kind of interesting thing about the project as a whole is it really has the same kind of group of actors in it, and they're all in each story playing a different role, which makes it have this kind of acting troupe feel to it, um, that I think is really fun because like they're all doing like different roles and different things, but they're all like together and like swapping in and out. No women in this thing at all. By the way, it's just it's Ralph Fiennes, Benedict Cumberbatch, Ben Kingsley, Dev Patel, who uh, I don't think has been in a Wes Anderson thing before. Dev Patel, but he needs to be because he fits right in. He fits right. He's really, really good in this. I'm thinking of Henry Sugar in particular, but he's in
Okay.
he's in all of them. Um, so like, I would not be surprised if we see Dev Patel in a new Wes Anderson thing soon because he was just really, really good. He fits Wes Anderson's aesthetic and style and pace and tone. Like fast talking Dev Patel, just fucking great, really great.
Yeah, well, I can see it,
Yeah.
in my mind, so
Mhm.
awesome. No, I definitely will check that out. I'll probably watch them with my kids unless you tell me not to.
Yeah, I think you'd be fine too. I mean, like, I think Roald Dahl's story is mostly for children, right? But he definitely writes some stuff that's not necessarily for children. But I think these are all. I mean, Henry Sugar, I think is fine. I mean, Poison. No, I think they're fine. I think they're fine.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. I wanted to say that because I love them, and also because I feel like Netflix is letting us and letting Wes Anderson down by not fucking pushing any of this stuff at all.
Yeah,
Because
that is
there's
really weird.
there's a whole bunch of Wes Anderson just available right now, and no one's talking about it.
Well, we're doing our part, so.
Mhm. All right, Matt, what do you got?
Let's see. Next, I think you and I both watched some amount of the new One Piece live action show.
Yeah.
Um, I watched the first episode only so far. I'm not against continuing. I may continue. My kids enjoyed it. The first moment when the rubber power is revealed was very fun for everyone. It was just kind of a delightful moment because the kids really had no idea what they were getting into at all, and I kind of did because I kind of know what One Piece is. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I thought it was like just a fun adventure. Like it's what you want from a pirate adventure, where it's like Pirates of the Caribbean or what have you, where it's swashbuckling and just nailing the tone and
Yeah.
really hooking you with the characters. And I think you watched more than I did, but I enjoyed the first episode quite a lot.
Yeah, but only by a little bit. I just looked up where I was while you were talking, and I'm like midway through episode 3, so I'm
Okay.
not that much. Yeah, and this is one of those ones where like I'm surprised, and I think people would be surprised, and I'm surprised based on how kind of positive I was about this last time we talked, that I would not have really spent some time finishing this thing off.
Hmm.
I don't know the reason why. Like, it's not that I'm not enjoying it. It's just that like everything else that I've talked about, like I was more curious and interested about, and I just
Hmm.
haven't
Hmm.
gotten to this. I think it's also this is something I'm not watching with my wife, and a lot of the things that we've been talking about today have been things that my wife was interested in as well. And so we were watching them together because
Hmm.
we're both home, we're both not working, we're both taking care of the baby, and so we end up both watching the same stuff at right
Hmm.
now. So that doesn't help either. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll probably continue with One Piece at some point. I'm just looking at like this list of all the things that have come out in the last couple of days that I need to watch, and it's long, so it might be a bit till I get to it.
Yeah. Well,
Because the new Mike Flanagan show came out today, and that's 8 episodes long, and they're all an hour or more, and I need to watch this as soon as possible. So that's gonna be that's gonna be taking up my TV watching time for the near future. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There's just too much out right now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All
Cool.
right. I think I've got some more on. I will briefly say that there's a movie Flora and Son that's on Apple TV right now, which was written and directed by a man named John Carney. I don't know if you've heard of John Carney at all, Matt. He wrote he wrote and directed a movie called Once, and a movie called Sing Street, and a movie called Begin Again. He is kind of like he writes stories about music and how music helps people. Sing Street, like my favorite movie from the year it came out, which I think was 2016. Um, and so this is a new movie, so I like watched it immediately, and it's very good. It's very good. I think the thing about John Carney is he's been writing the same movie over and over and over again,
Uh huh.
and yet I don't care because it's always really good, and the music's always really good in it. And I really enjoyed this one as well. So that's Flora and Son. It's on Apple TV. That's all I'll really say about it. Other than if you've listened to or watched a John Carney film before, you will like this one.
Cool. All right.
Let's talk about Loki real quick, and we can wrap it
Okay.
up. I
Sure.
think Loki season 2 is out right now, and I've watched the first episode. Have you watched any of this of Loki?
Nope. I was kind of holding off to see what the reaction was before I let it break my heart.
That's fair. That's fair. So Loki is, uh, I think it's the best Marvel TV show. We were talking about this the other day,
Uh huh.
and I think the words I used were, by process of elimination, it is the best thing Marvel has made in TV. Right? I think that's the word, the words I
You're
used.
really pulling out the damning with faint praise stick today.
Well, I mean, and I mean, we did a whole episode on Loki, I think, or we did a segment or something. I don't remember. And I think we were pretty mixed on that show overall, right? Like there were parts of it that we both really enjoyed, and then there were parts of it that didn't work as well for us. I think the ending is like, I think we thought it was bad, and the ending is the thing that the show leaves you with. And so I didn't really love Loki, but I think everything else in the Marvel TV experiment is so much worse that Loki like rises to the top. Like I think the only thing close in my estimation would be WandaVision. And again, I think that was a show that started super strong and then just kind of lost me by the end. But I think that like Loki has such potential to it. Like it's a really cool concept. Like just generally this idea of like here's this character that's trying to find himself, and how can we do that? Well, we put him in a situation where there's a multiverse and there are multiple versions of himself, and he struggles with all that, and it's really interesting. And I think Tom Hiddleston God, what is his name? What is his name?
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson. Thank you. They play off each other so well. They're great together. Love it so much. All that really good. And so I came into the season, trying to be pretty positive, and I I liked this episode, Matt. So I've watched one episode. I think this is going to be another 6 episode series, and I've watched the first one. I think the second one came out today, so I haven't gotten a chance to watch that one yet, and I liked it. It's a little plotty for me. So here, here's the problem, Matt. I have no idea what the fuck's going on in the show anymore. Like plot wise, I have no idea what's going on. So spoilers for the end of season 1 of Loki. He was working with a group called the TVA, who is meant to ensure that there is only one true timeline. They fail at the end of that season. It creates the multiverse, and then he meets Kang the Conqueror, who's like, "Yeah, that's me, and if you kill me, all the other Kangs will come." And he's like, "Oh, that's bad. I shouldn't do that." But then his variant, the female Loki, whose name Sylvie, I think her name is,
Hmm.
she kills Kang, and then we're like, "Oh shit!" And that's where the season ends. And now, like, I don't know what's going on at all. The first episode is very plot heavy. There's a lot of plot and a lot of talking about like what's happening and what we have to do to stop it. And like that was never the strength of the show to me. Like I always liked it more as a character thing of like the plot elements were really just there to help reinforce the identity crisis that our main character was having. Um, but it's very, very plot heavy. But it's also very funny. Like there's a new character called OB, which stands for Ouroboros, that is introduced, and he is I'm blank on his name. The guy that won the Oscar last year for Everything Ever All at Once.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at his name too, but
Um, uh, Ki Hui Kwan.
okay.
I love him, and he's great. He's very funny in the show. So I guess what I'm saying is I think you should try it out. I'm worried that they're like losing the character stuff to focus on like the plot of the multiverse and Kang coming and all this stuff that's going to feed into the larger Marvel thing that I just don't give a shit about at all.
Hmm.
I care about Loki as a character, and I care about the Morbius character that's played by Owen Wilson as a
Hmm.
character, and that's about it. So
Yep.
I don't want to. I hope we don't get lost in the plot of and the Kang of it all, which is actually like one of the weird things about the show, Matt, is that the actor who plays Kang the Conqueror has been accused by many people of very horrible behavior, and Jonathan Majors and Marvel and Disney have not like said if they're going to do anything about that or not. Um, and like, did you watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Quantumania thing?
Still no.
Okay, well, that movie ends with like 1,000 Jonathan Majors in an arena, all screaming at each other, and I haven't like his presence here is huge. Like, there's statues of Kang like all around the version of the TVA that Loki finds himself in at the beginning of the show. And so it's this really weird thing where like it feels like they're just kind of kicking the ball down a little further away, and like we're not going to make a decision on this for a little bit of time because he's not in the show. It's just like statues of his face everywhere, and it's weird. It's just a little weird.
Uh-huh. Well, it's going to be a
And
lot easier to change those statues to some other actor's face when they recast him.
yeah. I mean, I feel like inevitably that's what they're going to have to do. Like the amount of serious like abuse allegations that have been brought against this guy in the past few months, like I feel like you can't in staying like in the world we live in, like you can't just ignore that and move forward with an actor. So I feel like that's the inevitable thing they're going to have to do, but it just feels weird. They're just kicking the can a little bit further down the road each time and not making that decision, and that hangs over this first episode at least, like almost literally, and that there's like statues like hanging over the characters with this guy's face on it.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I think I will give it a try. Easy enough, fairly bite-sized episodes,
yeah. There's only 6 of them, so.
and I did like the first
Hmm.
season mostly.
Hmm.
I remember liking it a lot, and then feeling quite mixed on it by the end. So
Yeah, I mean that's like yeah, that last episode almost. But like I think to me it felt like this really really interesting kind of contained character study thing where you have like Loki and his variant, like you have Loki, a character with identity crisis, like talking to a version of himself, trying to figure out who he is, who she is, who they are, um and then everything halts, and now we have to do the Kang thing now, and it just felt like the air just
yeah,
out of the room for
makes
me.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so far it feels like we have the character stuff going on, but we're much more plot driven in that first episode. I hope that's just like we have to like set the stakes for the first episode, and then we're gonna move forward from there. But we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, your last thing, Matt. We got to talk
Uh,
about.
I rewatched The Dark Knight Rises because I was like, was this movie actually bad like Scott said it was? Um, and it was horrible. Not only did I like not like it as much as I remembered, but I was like, oh my god, this is embarrassing. This is awful. This is god awful. And I watched the whole thing thinking maybe it got better toward the end. Why did I like this? That's pretty much my whole story. Everybody knows The Dark Knight Rises. Everybody
Uh-huh.
maybe I think like The Dark Knight is such a good movie that it like sends out tendrils of goodness that make you think the whole Nolan trilogy was good, or at least maybe that's what's happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just a horrible, horrible movie, and I hated it. That's it.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I do think there are some good things in it. Like I still think that like the Bane beats the shit out of Batman and breaks his back sequence is like actually just pretty well done. And this is me, a guy who doesn't love Nolan, saying this. So I really distinctly remember watching that movie for the first time, and then that sequence, thinking, legitimately thinking and believing he's gonna kill him,
Hmm.
like he's going to kill him, and like having to like have my mind wrap around like what is this movie if and when that happens, and
Uh-huh.
that's an experience that I just don't get in these superhero films very often. So I will always treasure that particular one, but yeah, the plot's a bit of a mess. It's just a mess of a movie for sure.
Yeah, it takes itself a million times more seriously
Yeah.
than it ought to, and it's just exhausting and it's overlong, and
Yeah.
so many stupid things happen that make no sense, like over and over, just constantly. You're just like it's an overwhelming barrage of
Hmm.
stupid things that don't make sense until you just stop caring, and you're just
Yeah.
like, okay, it's not. I guess I'm not supposed to take this seriously as like a plot. I'm just supposed to. It's like a metaphor, or something. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It
My
sucks.
favorite thing about it though is I actually just saw this today of like revisionist history people that have decided that Christopher Nolan is actually like a secret like right wing nut job,
Uh huh.
that he rewrote uh Dark Knight Rises to be anti Occupy Wall Street because he saw that happened, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's bad. I'm going to make my villain be a liberal and make my story about how Occupy Wall Street is bad actually." And it's just like the timing of that doesn't work out at all. Like
Uh huh.
the movie was written and done like before Occupy became a thing, but it's just really funny people decide things.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. I mean, if anything, this is actually not a criticism of the movie, but the movie did have a very prescient take on like populism as a force,
Mhm.
because there's all these scenes where I was watching them and I was like, wait, when did this come out? Because you've got Bane doing stuff like saying like he keeps like every time Bane gives a speech, he's pretending that he's speaking on behalf of the people of Gotham.
Yeah.
But but of course he's actually doing terrible things and he's doing whatever he wants, and then he's putting power in the hands of the criminals. But then he'll give a speech justifying what he did on the grounds that like this is what the people of Gotham truly want. And it's like, oh, this is a great send up of like populism as a political movement, which is divorced from either left or right. It's populism is the idea of a sort of appealing to the selfish desires of the majority, basically.
Yeah.
And it's but also at the same time, the sort of fascist angle of actually ruling by fear, but the rhetoric makes it seem like he has the mandate of the people. Anyway, that wasn't bad, and I actually found it somewhat prescient in retrospect, but it was way too self-serious and boring, and also you can't understand anything Tom Hardy's saying ever throughout the entire movie. And I don't know how that decision was permitted to go through to the final movie. The Tom Hardy voice thing. It's so
Look,
bad. It's so bad.
look. Christopher Nolan has very special ears, and
uh
if he can understand it. No, I mean, this is honestly like we've talked about this so much that Nolan's mixes suck.
Uh-huh.
They always he just mixes noises so badly
Uh-huh.
to where dialogue is always difficult to understand in a Nolan film. And then yeah, you put a thing in front of a character's face and it's just game over.
Yeah.
Um I mean, it's hard. Like as a person who has dabbled in mixing dialogue together with noises together, like when you're sitting at your booth or your computer and you have giant headphones on your ears and you know what the words are that the character's being said, it's very easy to mix the noise too loud because you think you understand it. Like it's very easy to do that. I've definitely done it before. Um, but yeah, you would think in a multi-million dollar film, someone would listen to this thing and be like, "Hey, I can't understand any of your dialogue."
Yeah. I mean, it's somebody's job to know how to do this well. Like,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of technology they have for like creating a sort of sonic pocket where the voice can sit such that it's not being screwed with by noise at that frequency. And I just like it's like Nolan and his team never heard of any of this, and they just it's all just like the music and the noise and the vocals are all in the same frequency band, and it's just nonsense.
Yeah, it's like one thing that I've noticed early on in our podcast when our sound quality wasn't as good and I would be listening to our shows as I was driving to work, you have a much lower register than I do, and for whatever reason the way I was mixing your sound would sync up exactly with like the sound of driving on a highway,
Uh-huh.
like just the road sounds, and like I would just totally be unable to hear anything you were saying while I was driving in my car. And yeah, that's kind of what it's like, right? It's
Yeah.
just like he's
Yeah.
he's he's matching the sounds so close to each other that they just bleed over each other and drown each other out
Yeah.
completely, and it's just nothingness. And
No.
and if it was just Bane in this movie, I would be like, well, that happens. But no, it's every one of his movies, man. It's just
Mhm.
it's worse here. And
Yeah.
actually, isn't this? I swear that they remixed the Bane stuff after the first trailer came out, and no one could understand it in the trailer, and then they mixed it and cleaned it up a little bit. But it's still
It
it's still not enough.
it might be a little better, but it's still very bad. Like,
Yeah.
it's still very, very bad, and it doesn't help that he's doing this weird accent,
Hmm.
on top of everything else.
Man, I love Tom Hardy, but yes,
What a
100%.
choice. Yeah. No, it's funny. I really, I was going to just rattle this off as just like, yeah, I watched this movie and it sucked, and we would get a laugh. But yeah, I enjoyed ragging on this movie with you. This was
Good.
fun.
I mean, I will always be there for the Christopher Nolan takedown. So
Oh God.
I still
I,
haven't seen Oppenheimer. I feel so bad about this. I still haven't seen it.
yeah, No, that's you'll like it when you get around to it. But
I'm sure I will. I feel bad that I didn't see it in theaters though.
yeah, yeah,
But at least at home I can put on subtitles.
yeah. That'll help with that movie. Also, I mean, it's a great movie, but his sound guy still is not pulling his weight.
I mean, like, is it his sound guy's fault? Like, is it Nolan's fault? Like,
I don't know.
in my mind, I'm like, his sound guy hands this perfectly mixed movie to Christopher. And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, this is great. Hang on, I just got to make some tweaks."
I
I don't know.
don't. I don't know. I mean, right? Like, because we're not just joking here. Like, in all seriousness, it's really bad. It's like
It's
really
very bad.
noticeably bad,
Yeah.
and yet it keeps happening.
Hmm.
So it has to be Nolan who's totally happy with this,
Yeah.
which is baffling to me. It's like maybe his hearing is different from my hearing in some way, and he's just this is this is what he likes. I mean, that can happen. Like, I mean, just to be serious, like if you're hearing quality narrow, like if you lose the high registers and you can now only hear the mid registers or the low registers,
Hmm.
then you're going to mix all your sound in the registers that you can hear, which
Yeah.
which which means to you, you're like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I can hear it. I can hear everything that's happening in this movie. I can't hear what's happening in other movies, and it's because they're going deaf and they're losing their hearing and they can't hear high pitches. I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
serious I am about this. I'm like, I kind of want to pursue this theory now and see whether Chris Nolan is actually losing his hearing.
I do think one of the other things that I read recently is that Nolan does not like re-record dialogue like for ADR ever. He records all dialogue on location and doesn't do any ADR. Um
Hmm.
so like that makes you a lot less flexible in how you can handle dialogue sounds. Um
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
but that's why we do ADR. Like that's why it
Right.
exists.
Right. Maybe there's also the same problem with like the IMAX thing where he's mixing them for like these, these movie theaters of which there are like 3 in the world,
Hmm.
and he's just aiming to have the best possible experience in theaters that have amazing, perfect sound systems, and doesn't really care whether that works on your home theater with your subwoofer or whatever you happen to have.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it is like a common thing in home systems that like the way sound is mixed on the thing you're watching versus the way it comes out of your sound bar or whatever. Dialogue can sometimes be tough to listen to
mhm.
hear just normally. Like I don't know if you've ever had that experience where like you have to crank it up to hear the dialogue, but then like an action scene happens and all of the sound effects are like super fucking loud,
Yeah,
so you lower the volume, but then dialogue starts again and they're like, fuck, I can't hear any
yeah,
of this, so you have to crank it up again. Like that's a common problem that I've found. I kind of fixed my sound system to where that wouldn't happen, but I think that's the way most people watch things, are going to
yeah.
have a problem similar to that. So yeah, yeah. And then you get a Nolan film where that's all, it just compounds it.
It's even worse. Yeah,
Yeah.
all of the
I don't know,
above.
man. He defends it though. Anytime someone talks to him about it, he's like, "No, this is how I do it." So
Okay,
whatever.
all right.
Just keep using subtitles.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've been going for about 90 minutes, Matt. So I think that's good. I did see some more stuff, but we'll maybe save that for future conversations.
Yeah.
But
All right.
that's what we did on our baby vacation.
Sounds good.
All right, folks, that's all we had for you. If you have any opinions on any of the just tons of things we talked about, I'm not even going to list them. There's too many. But if you have any opinions on any of them, please feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, over on Twitter at doofmedia, or on our subreddit r/doofmedia, where you will find a thread for this episode where you can chat with people.
That's right. And if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to subscribe. You can find the Doofcast on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/Doof Media, and you can pledge at any of the available levels. You get a whole bunch of bonus stuff, including we just did another episode of Other Levels of the Tower this week, which is our Stephen King adjacent podcast where we discuss adaptations of King's novels. We talked this week about The Green Mile, the 1999 Frank Darabont 3-hour film based off of Stephen King's serialized novel on the death penalty. And I thought it was a great conversation, Matt. I really enjoyed that one. We talked about the death penalty for quite a while, which makes sense for a movie like that.
Yes, we did. Yeah, I enjoyed that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That is right. And next week on our show, we're going to be back to our Blind Spot series. We're going to do Matt's fourth pick, I think. Your fourth pick. The film is Stalker. I think we were supposed to do this before I went on vacation, but it didn't work out that way. But it's fine. It's fine. We're back. We're doing Blind Spots. We're going to watch and talk about Stalker.
Can't wait.
We'll see you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.